Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Wahid Kurniawan, and today in this video, I would like to explain about some skill in listening or in TOEFL. So I would like to start. First, skill number one is focus on the last line. This is about the short dialogues involve conversation between two people, each followed by a question. It is important to understand that the answer to this type of question is most often, but not always, found in the last line of the conversation. So there is a thing that strategy in focus on the last line. Strategy number one is the last line of the dialogue probably contains of the answer to the question. And number two, listen to the first line of the dialogue. If we understand it, that's good. If we don't understand it, don't worry about, because it probably does not contain the answer. And the three is be ready to do focus on the last line of the dialogue because it probably contain the answer. Repeat the last line in our mind as we are read through the answer in the text. Then move the skill number two is choose answer with the synonyms. It means that often the correct answer in the short dialogues is an answer that contains synonyms or words with similar meaning but different sounds. For this is also for keywords in the conversation. There is two strategy in this skill. Now strategy number one is, as we listen to the last line of the dialogue, focus on keywords in the that line. And strategy number two is, if you see any synonym for the keywords in the particular answer, then you have probably found the correct answer. So move the skill number three is avoid similar sounds, means that often the incorrect answer in the short dialogues are answers that contain words with similar sounds but very different meanings from what you hear on the recording. So you should definitely avoid this answer. That's about this skill. There are two strategy. Strategy number one is identify keywords in the last line of the dialogue, and number two is identify words in the answers that contain similar sounds and do not choose this answer. There's a note for the skill is in appendix A. There are drills to practice distinguishing similar sounds. So we may want to complete this practice drill before trying the following exercise. So move the skill number four is draw the conclusion about who, what, and where. So it means that it is common in short dialogues to ask you to draw some kind of the conclusion. In this type of question, the answer not clearly stated. Instead, you must draw a conclusion based on clues given in the dialogue. So one kind of the conclusion that is common in this part of the test is to ask you to determine who the speaker is based on the clues given in the dialogue. So about this skill, conclusion about who, what, where is common for you to be asked to draw one of the following conclusion in the short dialogues, and it is consists of one, who is probably talking, two, what will she or he probably do next, and three, where does the dialogue probably takes place. And the five skill is listen for who and what in the passive. This means that it's sometimes difficult to understand who or what is doing the action in a passive sentence. This problem is often stated in the short dialogue. So to manage it, there are two strategy for this is strategy number one. If the dialogue contains a passive statement, the answer to the question is often the active statement. And number two is if the dialogue contains an active statement, the answer to the question often a passive statement. This skill number 6 is listen for who and what with multiple nouns. It means that when there is more than one noun in a sentence in the short dialogues, it's common for the answer to confuse which noun is what. So to manage it, there are one strategy is when there are multiple nouns in the sentence, it's common for the answer to confuse which noun does what. And number 7 is listen for negative expression. Means that negative expressions are very common in the short dialogues, and the most common kind of the correct response to a negative statement is passive statement contain words with opposite meaning. So about this is type of negative expression like expression regular negative not or not. Example, Tom is not sad about the result. The correct answer is not sad or happy. And next is skill number 8 is listen for double negative expression. Means that it's possible for two negative ideas to appear in one sentence, and the result can be quite confusing. This about double negative is like in situation negative word no not no noun and negative prefix is in and this. For example, he didn't like the unclean office, and the meaning for this is did not like unclean office. So, number 9 is listen for almost negative expression. Means that certain expression in English have almost negative meaning, so these expressions are common in the short dialogues. This like almost none, hardly, barely, scarcely, and only. An example is there are hardly any food in the refrigerator. Then yes, listen for negative with the comparative. This means that negative can be used with the comparative in the short dialogues of the TOEFL test. A sentence with a negative and comparative has a superlative or very strong meaning. Next is skill 11 is listen for expression of agreement. This means that expression of agreement are common in the short dialogues, so you should become familiar with them. The following example of short argument with a positive statement. Next is listen for expression of uncertainty and suggestion. Means that are common in the short dialogue, so you should become familiar with them. The following examples show the expression of uncertainty. Then listen for emphatic expression of surprise. Emphatic expression of surprise are common in the short dialogues, so you should become familiar with them. When surprise is expressed, it implies that the speaker did not expect something to be true. Then is contrary meanings. For skill 14, listen for wishes. This about conversation about wishes can appear in the short dialogues. The important idea to remember wishes the wish implies that the opposite of the wish is true. Then skill 15 is listen for untrue condition. This can appear in the short dialogues. Then the important idea to remember condition is that condition implies that the opposite of the condition is true. Then uh, idiomatic language means skill 16, listen for 2 and 3 part verbs. These 2 and 3 part verbs appear in the sum question in the short dialogues. These verbs are expressions that include a verb and one or more particles such as in, on, or at. And the particle change the meaning of the verb. Question involving 2 and 3 part verbs can be difficult for students because the addition of the particle changes the meaning of the verb in idiomatic way. And the last skill is listen for idioms. Idioms appear in the sum question in the short dialogues. Idioms are special expressions in the language that all speakers of the language know. This special expression describe one situation in life but are applied to many different areas of life. Idiom question can be difficult for students because they seem to describing one situation when they are really describing a different situation. So that's all the skill of the TOEFL can help me to this. So that's all for me. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.